Ravenclaw Hermione. Hermione Granger walks into Hogwarts ready to memorize every book in the library, and the Sorting Hat sends her exactly where that energy belongs, Ravenclaw, which means the troll incident in first year goes differently. Ron still says something awful about her, but Hermione cries in the Ravenclaw bathroom, not the one with the troll, and Harry and Ron handle the monster without her. They become best friends. Without Harry and Ron pulling her into yearly near-death adventures, Hermione does what Hermione does best. She studies. Top of every class, favorite of every professor. And by third year, she's spending most of her evenings in the library arguing medical theory with the one Hufflepuff who can actually keep up, Cedric Diggory. He's kind, brilliant, and actually listens to her opinions like they matter. By fourth year, Hermione is so in love, it's almost embarrassing. Then the maze takes him. Cedric touches the cup, lands in a graveyard, and comes back as a body. Harry staggers out, screaming that Voldemort killed him, and the Ministry spends the entire summer calling Harry a liar, while Hermione sits in her parents' house reading every book on dark magic she swore she'd never open. Grief does something to the smartest witch of her generation. It gives her a project. She finds Harry at the start of fifth year and recruits him like a loaded weapon with a prophecy attached. From that point on, Hermione runs the war. She maps every Horcrux a full year before Dumbledore gets around to showing Harry the memories, and breaks into the Ministry for the locket while Harry is still learning what a pensive does. By the time the war goes hot, she's brewing polyjuice by the cauldron and interrogating captured Death Eaters with legilimency she taught herself from a banned book. Harry gets the credit and the chocolate frog card, but every move he made came out of Hermione's notebook. Turns out the ship that saved the wizarding world was Cedric and Hermione. The fandom just never saw it coming. Gryffindor Snape. Severus Snape lands in Gryffindor and gets the one thing canon Snape dreamed about his entire life. Lily Evans. Without Slytherin pulling him sideways, they stay best friends through school, start dating in sixth year, and honestly, it looks like the Sorting Hat just handed this kid a happy ending. Except Snape is still, well, Snape. The Half-Blood Prince textbook still happens. The dark spells get scratched into the margins, the restricted section calls to him at night. Gryffindor changed their wrapping, not the contents. Lily finds his notes, Sectum Sempra, and a collection of experimental curses dark enough to make Mulciber wince, and realizes the boy she loves has been hiding a whole second personality under the red and gold scarf. She leaves him and goes to James Potter within the month, marries him a year later. And here's why Gryffindor makes this worse. Canon Snape could spend his whole life telling himself, if only I'd been in her house, if only I hadn't said that word, everything would have been different. This Snape was in her house. He had every chance. She left anyway, because the problem was never the tie, it was him. He goes to Voldemort with the kind of rage that only a Gryffindor who lost everything can carry, becomes a spy inside the Order, feeds intel for years, and when Voldemort heads to Godric's Hollow, Snape asks to come along, kills James personally, his wand, his curse, eye to eye, then asks Voldemort to spare Lily. Voldemort agrees the way Voldemort always agrees, walks upstairs and kills her anyway. Harry survives, Voldemort vanishes, and years later when Harry finds out who actually cast the curse that killed his father, he hunts Snape down and finishes it. Which means the only spy Dumbledore had and the only person who could have told Harry he was a Horcrux dies on a teenage boy's revenge before any of that information reaches the right people. Voldemort comes back, and this time nobody knows how to stop him. Hufflepuff Ron. Ron Weasley gets sorted into Hufflepuff, and overnight he goes from another Weasley to the most promising kid in his year. And it turns out that's exactly what he needed. Without five brothers casting a shadow, Ron becomes the star. He's funny, loyal, and the best chess player in his year. Hufflepuff loves him for exactly who he is. The problem is, he never shares a train compartment with Harry Potter. Hermione drifts toward Ron instead. He's warm and secure. He doesn't carry Harry's storm cloud of doom everywhere he goes. The famous golden trio never forms. It's Ron and Hermione, the popular couple, and Harry, the strange, isolated kid. They never become friends. Harry spends his school years on his own, learning one lesson over and over. Trust nobody. Handle everything himself. Walk into the fire alone. And when the war comes for him, Harry falls in the Forbidden Forest with no friends left to pull him back. And the forest keeps him. Voldemort wins. The Chosen One is dead. The ministry is his, and the wizarding world goes dark. And that's when Ron Weasley's real story starts. While the brave Gryffindors charged Voldemort head-on and died doing it, Ron survived. Because Hufflepuffs play the long game. His brothers survived for a simpler reason. Without Harry in Ron's orbit, Fred and George never enlisted in a war that wasn't theirs to fight. And Fred is very much alive, still co-running WWW, and quietly turns the joke shop into the logistics arm of a resistance nobody knows exists yet. Ron pulls these scattered survivors together around them and builds an underground network nobody important bothers to watch, and starts doing the one thing he's better at than anyone alive, reading the whole board, where every piece is where it's going, which sacrifice opens the killing move 10 turns later. It takes him years, he loses people, makes brutal trades, and never once gets to be the hero in a prophecy. But piece by piece, Ron Weasley boxes in an immortal Dark Lord the same way he cornered McGonagall's giant chess set at 11 years old. Patient, ruthless, and always 3 moves ahead. The most dangerous wizard of the age turned out to be the chess kid from Hufflepuff, Slytherin Pettigrew. Peter Pettigrew gets sorted into Slytherin, and his entire personality stops working overnight. In Gryffindor, his nervous energy looked like a kid trying to be brave, endearing, sympathetic, the runt of the marauder litter. At the Slytherin table, the same kid just looks like prey. Mulciber and Avery clock him as soft within a week. Snape's crowd uses him for errands and target practice, and Peter learns very quickly that survival means picking a bigger predator and getting useful to it fast. James, Sirius, and Remus never let him near the marauders. The 3 of them build the map, become Animagi, run wild around Hogwarts as their tight little trio, and Peter Pettigrew is just some twitchy Slytherin kid they pass in the corridor, which means when the war comes and the Potters need a secret keeper, they pick the obvious choice. Sirius, James's best friend, the man who would die before betraying him. No clever double bluff plan. And just like that, the entire war flips. Sirius keeps the secret. Voldemort spends years hunting the Potters and never finds Godric's Hollow. The prophecy can't fulfill itself if he can't locate the child it's about. Lily and James survive the first war alive and whole, raising Harry in a house that doesn't get blown up on Halloween. Voldemort, frustrated and bleeding influence, eventually gets cornered by the Order at full strength, including a James Potter who's still alive to fight him and goes down for real. The Horcruxes still exist, but a fully staffed Order with years to hunt them tears through the list before he can rebuild. Harry grows up with parents. The boy who lived isn't anyone in particular. He's just the Potter's kid, vaguely famous because Voldemort once wanted him dead, now mostly known for being terrible at charms and dating someone in Ravenclaw. And somewhere in a quiet corner of Azkaban sits Peter Pettigrew, picked up in a Death Eater raid in 1979. Never important enough to recruit or remember. The man whose cowardice destroyed the wizarding world in another timeline never got the chance, because the Sorting Hat put him at the wrong table. Slytherin Dumbledore. Alright, Albus needs a bit of canon context, especially for anyone who skipped Fantastic Beasts. No judgment, we still like you. The summer after Hogwarts, Albus became very good friends with Gellert Grindelwald, a dark wizard, basically a better dressed Voldemort, nose included. The 2 of them planned to conquer the Muggle world for the greater good, and everything fell apart when Ariana, Dumbledore's little sister, died in a duel between Albus, his brother Aberforth, and Grindelwald. So yeah, the Slytherin blood was always in there somewhere. Now let's imagine how it could have gone differently. What if Albus had been sorted into Slytherin from day one? The wizarding world's brightest mind grows up in the wrong common room. His brilliance gets sharpened toward power, and by graduation he's already drafting essays that read more like manifestos. He leaves Hogwarts looking for someone who can match him. He meets Grindelwald that summer in Godric's Hollow, 2 Slytherin minds locked together with absolutely nothing slowing them down. And the connection is instant. Magic, theory, ambition, everything. Aberforth, the loud, stubborn, deeply unimpressed brother, tries to break it up, and we already know how that ends. This Albus blames him entirely, cuts him off, and leaves Godric's Hollow with Gellert that same week. The 2 of them hit the road as a partnership the magical world has never seen before. They take Europe in under a decade. Grindelwald is the face out front, the speeches, the army marching across the continent. Dumbledore is the brain in the back, solving impossible problems nobody else can touch. The Elder Wand sits between them, shared in a way nobody fully understands. And every brilliant wizard who might have led a resistance gets recruited or quietly invited to dinner first. Resistance movements collapse in the planning stage, because the smartest opponent they could have recruited is already sitting at Grindelwald's right hand. By the early 30s, while the Muggle world is still years away from its own war, the wizarding world has already been conquered quietly. Nurmengard becomes the new seat of magical power in Europe. The Statute of Secrecy gets rewritten by the people enforcing it. Hogwarts answers to Berlin, and Albus Dumbledore returns to his old school as headmaster, appointed by Grindelwald himself, ruling the castle like a private kingdom. And one September morning in 1938, an 11-year-old orphan named Tom Riddle steps off the Hogwarts Express, looks up at the silver-haired wizard greeting the first years on the steps, and feels something settle into place. Brilliant. Terrifying. The boy who would have grown up to be Lord Voldemort just found his mentor, his model, and his future. The next Dark Lord is about to be raised personally by the current one, and the wizarding world has centuries of darkness ahead. Slytherin Cedric. Cedric Diggory gets sorted into Slytherin, and a kid who is already smart, athletic, and ridiculously good-looking picks up the one trait he was missing: paranoia. 6 years of common room politics, watching Lucius Malfoy's kid manipulate professors and the Carrow cousins plot revenge over breakfast. Teaches him something no Hufflepuff version of him would have learned. If something looks too good to be true, somebody is about to die for it. Pretty quickly, Cedric knows something's off. He watches Lucius Malfoy lean on his son, watches the older Slytherins talk pure-blood politics over breakfast, and goes straight to Dumbledore. Albus listens, gets that look in his eye that means a chess piece just walked itself onto the board, and asks Cedric to keep playing along with the Slytherin and Lucius ways. Laugh at the right jokes, attend the right dinners, just don't get caught. To make sure no one can read his mind, Dumbledore asks Snape to train him. Cedric spends his evenings in the dungeons learning occlumency from the man himself, and locks his head down tight. He becomes Snape's assistant, and Voldemort notices. Still in his baby form, hidden away, the Dark Lord sends Lucius to recruit the Golden Boy. Lucius makes the pitch. Cedric plays along. Voldemort tries to read him, gets nothing, and welcomes a fully trained double agent into the inner circle without ever realizing it. Snape and Cedric are spies now, with Dumbledore 3 steps ahead of every move. Then the Triwizard Tournament happens. No Crouch Jr. needed. Moody is the real Moody this time, and Cedric already knows the plan. He's the one helping Harry through the whole thing, making sure both of them reach the maze clean. When the cup turns into a portkey, Dumbledore is the one who touches it. He lands in the graveyard, faces a wraith and a fragile baby-formed Dark Lord, and kills Voldemort right there. The war ends before anyone outside the plan ever knew it was happening. Gryffindor Draco. Draco Malfoy gets sorted into Gryffindor, and Lucius Malfoy faints clean off his chair in the manor sitting room when the news arrives by owl. By the next morning, Draco's vault access is frozen. His trunk gets shipped back to Hogwarts with a howler attached, and the Malfoy family officially disowns its only heir at the age of 11. He arrives in the Gryffindor common room expecting hostility and gets something worse: pity. The other Gryffindors don't know what to do with the bleach, sneering disaster sleeping in their dormitory, so they mostly just leave him alone. Draco spends his first year sulking in corners, second year hiding in the library, and third year trying to pretend he hasn't noticed that the only person in the entire school who treats him like a normal human being is Harry Potter. Harry, who has zero patience for pure-blood drama, watches Draco fall apart quietly all year, and finally just sits down next to him in the courtyard one afternoon and offers him half a sandwich. That's it. That's the whole thing. By 5th year, they're best friends. By 6th year, Hermione is making increasingly pointed observations about the way Draco looks at Harry when Harry isn't watching, and the way Harry looks at Draco when Draco isn't watching. By the Yule break of 7th year, they're a couple, and Hogwarts loses its collective mind. Literally the most shipped pairing in fan history, after Hermione, of course. Voldemort hates it. He was counting on Draco to grow up into a useful soldier, and instead the kid is spending all his time with the prophecy boy. Narcissa stages a dramatic reconciliation attempt that Draco politely declines. And when the final battle comes, Harry Potter's secret weapon is a Malfoy who knows every Death Eater's home address, every hidden manor wing, and exactly which floorboard hides the family's emergency Horcrux breakup plan. The war ends 6 months faster. Thank you, Draco. Slytherin Ginny. Ginny Weasley gets sorted into Slytherin, and the youngest Weasley, the one who grew up watching 6 older brothers get all the attention, finally lands somewhere that takes her seriously. The Weasleys are devastated for about a week. Then they realize Ginny is happier and sharper than they've ever seen her, absolutely thriving in a house that rewards ambition instead of treating it like a personality flaw. First year, the diary finds her the way it always finds her, slipped into her cauldron at Flourish and Blots by Lucius Malfoy. Slytherin Ginny opens it, talks to Tom Riddle for one afternoon, and realizes within hours exactly what he is. A piece of Voldemort's soul, lonely and arrogant, and absolutely packed with magical knowledge nobody at Hogwarts will ever teach her. She closes the diary, hides it under the mattress, and decides to keep it. For 4 years, Ginny Weasley plays the sweet, slightly awkward little sister at family dinners and the quiet Slytherin in the back row at class. And every night she opens the diary, lets Tom believe he's found himself a willing apprentice, and absorbs everything he knows. Curses he invented at 16. Defensive magic the Department of Mysteries hasn't classified yet. The full theory of Horcruxes with annotations. And legilimency techniques Snape would kill to teach. Tom thinks he's training his next lieutenant. Ginny is taking notes. By 5th year, she could duel half the Death Eater inner circle and win. By the time the final battle hits Hogwarts in her 6th year, she's the most dangerous witch in the castle, and nobody knows it. Hermione is brilliant. Harry has prophecy energy. But Ginny has spent 4 years studying directly under the teenage version of Lord Voldemort himself. She walks straight past Harry and the Order, and finds Voldemort in the Great Hall. She kills him with one of his own creations, a curse he taught her himself at 14. In the diary, when he found she was just an impressionable little girl. Voldemort dies looking confused because the spell coming at him is his own handwriting. The wizarding world spends weeks debating who the chosen one really was. Ginny gives one interview in the Daily Prophet, says she just got lucky, and quietly accepts the Order of Merlin. Her family still doesn't know. Honestly, neither does Harry. Gryffindor, Tom Riddle. The Sorting Hat lands on Tom Riddle's head, and Tom, 11 years old, already thinking 3 moves ahead, asks for Gryffindor. Slytherin is where people watch you. Gryffindor is where people trust you, and Tom Riddle has plans that require a lot of trust. Within 2 years, he's the kid every professor mentions at staff meetings, the one older students actually like, the one Dumbledore invites for tea. Then comes 1945. Grindelwald is tearing Europe apart, and the whole wizarding world is waiting for Dumbledore to stop him. Except Dumbledore keeps stalling, because the darkest wizard alive is also the boy he loved at 17, and he cannot make himself point a wand at that face. Tom, 18 and freshly graduated, volunteers. Walks into Nurmengard, walks out with Grindelwald in chains and the Elder Wand in his back pocket. Overnight, Tom Riddle becomes the biggest hero Britain has seen in centuries. And Dumbledore, drowning in relief so deep it feels like debt, will spend the rest of his life trusting the man who did the one thing he couldn't. Tom will collect on that for decades. The ministry after that is a formality. Minister at 35, landslide victory. The man defeated Grindelwald. Who's going to run against that? He marries Minerva McGonagall along the way, sharpest witch in the country, nearly a decade younger, the only person in Britain whose reputation almost matches his. The prophet calls them the golden couple. Dumbledore gives the toast at the wedding. Tom funds hospitals, reforms schools, gives speeches about unity that make grown witches cry. Meanwhile, Muggleborns quietly vanish from key positions. Opponents get promoted to departments that sound important and do nothing. Minerva figures it out the way Minerva always does. Slowly, precisely, and too late. A name missing from a department roster, then another. The woman who in another timeline would have dueled Voldemort on the castle steps looks across the dinner table and realizes she's been married to him for 15 years. She goes to Dumbledore, tells him everything. The missing names, the patterns, and a Horcrux she found behind a painting in his study. Dumbledore listens, nods, and says he'll look into it. 2 days later, he writes back. Tom explained everything. It was a misunderstanding. Please don't worry. Minerva reads the letter, burns it, and never raises the subject again. The doc Dark Lord 1, and his biggest weapon was a Gryffindor scarf. Slytherin Harry. The Sorting Hat screams Slytherin. Ron Weasley's jaw drops at the Gryffindor table, and Harry sits down next to Draco Malfoy, who offers his hand for the second time that night. This time Harry shakes it, and that one handshake rewrites the entire series. Draco becomes Harry's crash course in wizarding politics. Which families matter, which professors can be bought, which hallways have portraits that report straight to Dumbledore. Harry absorbs it all with the energy of a kid who spent 10 years eating scraps under a staircase, and just discovered the world has a VIP section. The restricted section opens up by second year, dark magic trickles in by third, and by fifth Harry is running slug club meetings like a Silicon Valley founder, running a quiet ledger of favors owned by half the school. Think Draco's confidence with Hermione's work ethic and absolutely zero moral compass. Terrifying combo. Snape notices before anyone else. A Slytherin with James Potter's nerve and Lily's brain, except with nothing slowing him down. Lucius Malfoy starts writing home about the Potter boy in a tone Draco has never heard his father use about anyone. Respect mixed with genuine fear. Half the old families whisper that the boy who survived the killing curse could be the next Dark Lord. The other half are already pledging loyalty, because why wait for the results when the polls look this good? And here's where it gets really fun. When Voldemort returns, he expects a rival. What he finds is worse, a competitor. Harry has already locked down the younger generation of Slytherin, turned Draco into a lieutenant, and built a network that looks suspiciously like a Death Eater organization, except it answers to him. Voldemort tries recruiting Harry at the graveyard, and Harry counter-offers. Step aside, old man. This throne's taken. The war that follows splits the dark side clean in half. Voldemort's old guard versus Harry's new blood. And Dumbledore, stuck watching from the sideline, has to pray the winner is the one he can still reach. Spoiler, he can't. Slytherin Sirius. Sirius Black lands in Slytherin, and his mom, Walburga Black, smiles for the first time in 11 years. Her eldest son finally at the right table, next to the right cousins, wearing the family crest without shame. Sirius gets the vault, the family ring, and the brother who worships him the way only younger brothers can. He plays the air perfectly until the night he watches Bellatrix pin a muggle-born first year to the common room floor for practice while everyone laughs. Sirius laughs too, because that's what Blacks do. Then throws up in the bathroom. That's the night he decides he's done. Sirius finds James Potter the way all Hogwarts friendships start. Through a detention they both earned for separate stupid reasons. James is loud and reckless, from a family that hugs each other in public, which is so foreign to Sirius it might as well be alien contact. Surprisingly enough, that's how the strongest friendship in wizarding history was born. He builds the Marauders in secret, and after graduation walks into Dumbledore's office offering what the Order has never had. A black heir with a dark mark and a seat at Voldemort's table. Every raid and every plan hits Dumbledore's desk by morning. The Order wins fights it has no business winning, and Voldemort never looks at the Blacks. Then Regulus discovers the Horcruxes. In canon, he figures it out alone, takes Creature to the cave, drinks the potion, and drowns without telling anyone. Here he has Sirius, the one person in the family he trusts. The Black brothers start hunting Horcruxes from inside Voldemort's own army. Sirius uses his spy access to track founder relics. Regulus handles the fieldwork, and Bellatrix herself, fully convinced both brothers are loyal, walks Regulus past the dragon and into the Lestrange vault for the cup. They destroy 5 of 7 fragments while Voldemort thinks they're his most loyal soldiers. Voldemort figures it out too late and kills them both personally. The wizarding world hears 2 Death Eaters were executed for disloyalty and nobody sheds a tear. James mourns his best friend in silence because he can never explain why he's crying over a man with a dark mark. But Voldemort, stripped down to his last Horcrux, is barely held together when the curse rebounds off baby Harry. This time there's almost nothing left to come back from. The Wraith dissolves, the Second War never happens. Harry still grows up an orphan, but in a world that's safe. Slytherin McGonagall. Minerva McGonagall gets sorted into Slytherin, and Hogwarts produces the most terrifyingly competent dark horse witch of the century. She still graduates top of every class. The only difference is that when Dumbledore is choosing heads of house years later, he looks at his old student, disciplined, principled, with a backbone made of dragon hide, and hands her the dungeons. Slughorn gets shuffled into potions and dinner parties, and the Snake Pit gets a headmistress who eats hexes for breakfast. Minerva runs Slytherin the way Minerva runs wants everything, zero tolerance, and total clarity. First years figure out fast that the new head of house actually checks the corridors for Muggle-born bullying, and actually follows through on the expulsion threats. Within her first 3 years, she's expelled 4 Slytherin students with confirmed dark magic incidents and written formal warnings to every pure-blood family. The ripple effect is enormous. Half of Voldemort's future inner circle never finishes school. Bellatrix Black gets expelled in 4th year for using Crucio on a Hufflepuff, and her parents can't buy her back in. The Lestrange brothers wash out before 6th year. Barty Crouch Jr. transfers to Durmstrang in shame after Minerva catches him torturing a pixie. Severus Snape arrives with all his dark spell research and gets it confiscated week 1. By the time Voldemort starts recruiting in earnest, his usual pipeline of bitter, expensively raised, dark magic curious Slytherin graduates is running on fumes. The kids who would have worn the mark are working at Gringotts because nobody else would hire a Slytherin expulsion. The First Wizarding War still happens, but Voldemort fights it with half an army. The Order tears through him in under 3 years. So Voldemort lost the war in 1971 in a Hogwarts office to a Scottish witch with a tartan handkerchief who simply refused to let her house become a recruiting ground for monsters. And if you think the Sorting Hat had power, wait until you see who gets handed baby Harry instead of the Dursleys. What if Harry Potter was raised by a different family? That's your next lesson here at Stickman Hogwarts. Click now before Hagrid drops him off at the wrong door.